My guest today is Croatian star Žarko Knego. Žarko, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you for calling me.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you very much.
How are you enjoying this beautiful nature, returning back to Red Bull Ring actually after 2 years?
Yeah, it is very nice to be back after 2 years. Hopefully, unfortunately, last 2 years we were not able to race here, and it's very nice to be back. It's one of the nicest tracks in the Europe, maybe even in the world. So it's nice to be back.
You obviously come from Croatia. How big a thing is motorsport in Croatia? How big is the support in your homeland for your career?
I would say that we have a much bigger support in our town in Dubrovnik than generally in Croatia. Dubrovnik has a long tradition of autosport. It's around 40 years, goes 40 years in the past, and the support in Dubrovnik is much bigger than in Croatia. Our federation, car federation, has improved a lot marketing and attendance in the media. So we are back with the live from races, so people are able to look at those races.
Croatia is of course a hosting venue of one of the racing weekends in the TCR at Grobnik. How much are you looking forward to that one?
Yeah, the Grobnik is, let's say, my home track, even though it is around 700 kilometers from the town where I live. But still, that's the place where I make all the testings and where I started my career with racing. So I would say that it's quite important for me to be there, and I will have lots of supporters, and also my colleagues will be there. So I look forward.
It's been difficult in the past 2 years, obviously, with the COVID and with all the restrictions. We were racing for a long time with no fans. So what are your expectations for your home race this season?
Yeah, lack of fan was a big. It was let's say an issue for all of us, because we were used to be on track where there is a lot of fans who are loving motorsport, and finally this year fans are back, and I find that in Grobnik there will be lots of people who will come and watch the race. We have announcement from a couple of buses coming from Dubrovnik, not just look to watch me, but also my teammates.
You have been racing Cupra Leon cars. What is your story? What is your connection to the brand? How did you choose to be racing Cupra?
Yeah, one of the decisions to buy Cupra was that a car racer from Montenegro, he used to have a Cupra, he used to own a Cupra, and I always wanted to race in TCR, and as he had the Cupra, he decided to sell it. So that was my first contact with this brand, and I purchased it. Later on, when I crashed last year in Slovakia, I was looking in several other brands. I was quite close to buy one Hyundai, but I decided to go with Cupra because for a team like we are, which is a small team, it was quite important to have a brand which has good support with parts, with a truck on a racetrack which has parts on stock.
Mm-hmm. You have already touched on that accident last season that sadly effectively ended your 21 campaign. That was a big crash in Slovakia at the Slovakia Ring. Can you talk us through what happened there?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate situation. I had the contact a lap before with one of the racers. I tried to overtake him. I made the mistake. I was late on brakes, and he crashed into my aft left wheel, which obviously made something loose, and I didn't feel it until I came to this fast right corner which goes around 200 kilometers an hour, and obviously the force was quite big, and something broke completely, and the car started sliding with its aft part. I tried to pull myself outside, but there was no. I wasn't able to do it, and at the end I crashed. The crash was quite big, and the moment when I hit was around 185 kilometers an hour. The good thing is that it didn't stop on one point. I start rolling with the car, so the force just spread around. So it ended up quite fast. For me, it ended up much faster than from the people who were looking from outside.
How was it then after the incident, from your perspective? Any effects? I suppose it's at least lots of pain in that crash.
Yeah, there is okay. We have all the safety in the cars, which is quite at a high level. There were some small wounds on the leg or something like this, but you know, crashing in racing, that's something normal for people who are not in racing. When they crash or when they see something like this, they're not sure whether they would sit in a car again. But that's something which you take as a part of this racing. So if you race or you don't race, and that's something that you should expect to be a part of it.
What does such an accident actually do with the racing driver's confidence? Is it immediately back? Does it take some time to get back to speed?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it takes some time. Not all the racers are the same. For me, it takes some time to come back, to get some confidence again. It's you always, even though that you know that it was not your mistake because it was a technical malfunction, but the problem is that you always think, was it your mistake? Could you have done something better or something? But as fast as as soon as you're back in the car and you start rolling laps and laps, it just goes away. That's the situation with me.
And how much did it affect your winter? Were you always sure that you would be back for 22, or were there any doubts?
Yeah, always the biggest problem, let's say, in my car racing, and I would say in most of the car racers, are the financials. So this crash cost me a lot. I sold the car in parts, which was, let's say, less than a half price of the car, which significantly affected my budget. But it was definitely that I will come back to racing. I was not sure to TCR because it's expensive. That is my first wish, but you know, you have to be realistic and see what are your financial abilities. Eventually, I managed to close the deal with one sponsor who is today here with us, who is a consultant in car industry, and they are helping me a lot. So they purchased the car. In most of the amount for the car they gave, so they helped me a lot to be back.
In the end, you actually ended up with the current generation of the Cupra Leon. We saw that car in the hands of Full Race Academy team being brought to winning ways last season. So how much of a confidence does it give you for this season? You know, it's a fast car.
Yeah, definitely. This car was owned by Zengo Motorsport and it was driven in VTCR, sorry. And so definitely it's a good car. I can't say that there are some lack of technical things that can limit my results. And it is the latest generation, so it has to be better than the last one. And when I made first few laps, you can't feel the difference in speed because the cars are similar, but you can feel the difference in handling. So I would say that it's a bigger improvement, which I can see today when I'm driving. My lap times are mostly better than they used to be. So I find this car as a good improvement and as a step forward.
Is it possible to put a finger on what are this model's weaknesses and strengths, maybe compared to other models?
Yeah, well, let's say I'm not so technical. I'm not so technical guy. I'm more the driver. So I say my feeling to the engineer, which does the improvements or some change on the car. But I would say that the biggest advantage is that this car was developed one of the latest. It was developed not so far ago, so the technical solutions are good, and it's a real racing car. Comparing to the old model, it has been developed as a TCR car, not like a coupe car, which was adapted to TCR. So I would say that it has its own advantages. I tried the Hyundai, and in my perspective, let's say after first few laps, I felt much better in the Cupra. I was much more confident, even though that the lap times with the Hyundai were quite fast, even for the first time.
What is your season expectation if we effectively move forward in time and you imagine you are already at the end of the season, you have a result? What would be a good result for you to take from the season?
Yeah, that's always difficult to predict. It can lots of factors have effect on this final result. So I would hope to be between 5th and 8th place overall at the end. Everything better when this would be more a dream at the moment. But let's say, to be realistic, between 5th and 8th place is something that would satisfy my expectations before the season and during this season.
We have obviously mentioned that the event in Croatia at Grobnik is also coming up. Regarding the other circuits, which are the ones, or what is the one that you are looking forward the most, and what is your favorite track of the season?
Yeah, even though I had this crash in Slovakia, I still find that Slovakia is one of the best tracks for me. I haven't been racing in Czech Republic due to the crash I had last year, so I haven't had an opportunity to race there. So I can't say could be this another one of the favorite tracks, but Slovakia is for me one of the favorite tracks because it has a fast part, it has a technical part, and you really have to be good in entire lap on each corner to have the best time. You can't, let's say, in the mid part, in the technical sector, you can't be slower, or in the fast part to go on, let's say, to be sure with some passes to go slower and still to have a good lap time. You have to be in each part of the track. You have to be fast and accurate to have a good lap time and to achieve a good result. So I would still say that Slovakia is one of my favorite tracks. Even though I love Red Bull, I love Hungaroring. All the tracks are nice. Grobnik is a home track, so always it's high in the rating of the best tracks. So, but still, I would say Slovakia is one of the best that I've been racing.
Okay, very nice. And right now we're at the Red Bull Ring, and it seems to be so far a wet, dry weekend. What are the conditions that you actually prefer the most? Is it dry because it's maybe faster, or wet because you can probably show a bit more from your talent?
Yeah. It's that's for me, it's a question that I love racing on dry because you can take out from you and from the car maximum, and you can drive the car on the limit. But all my best results, especially in TCR 2x4 place, were achieved in wet weather. Then there I see that let's say we are all even. There is no much advantage when somebody is making more tests, so he has more kilometers in the car or has a better setup. I would say that we are more even there, so I can show my driving skills better than maybe on a dry track. But I look forward, if I can choose, I would still go to a dry race.
Žarko, thank you very much for your answers and for being on this podcast, and we wish you all the best for the 22 season.
Thank you very much.